Like it is each Lord's Day, it's always good to gather together, to come together, to sing, to pray, to worship, to do all the things that we have been commanded to do. I want us to think for just a second as if we don't do this yet, but when it is time to depart and you get ready to go out and head out to the highway here, you have one of two options. You can turn left or you can turn right and to go down the road. But think about if we were to have either a divided highway to where there was no crossing, or you come up to a one-way street. Which way do you go? If we're following the sign and following the rules of the road, there is only one option to go, and that is the one direction that the arrow is pointing. And as we look at this morning's lesson, kind of the thought process here is Jesus saying in John chapter 14, verse 6, he says unto them, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. There's two things that he says here very distinctly. There's one little word that he says multiple times, and very specific in that word. Such a small little word that we overlook or we use so frequently, the word the. If we look at that word, the word the is defined as a definite article. It is used especially before a noun with specifying or particularizing effect, as opposed to the indefinite or generalization, such as the book you gave me, or come into the house. Or even in our situation here, we are all in the room together. One room. It is very specific about what it is and where we are at. So that little word that Jesus uses 3 times right there is very particular, very special in what it does. But what all does he say in this one verse? He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. When we look at it about being the way, as we look into the lesson, think of leaving out, I got ahead of myself in my illustration. There's that illustration. When we go out of the way, we have 2 ways to go. We hit that one-way street, there's only one way. Jesus said that he was the way, meaning one and only way. He says that right here is also repeated, looking at that idea in Hebrews 10. When we look at something being very definite, being very structured, he is the way. When we think about this, do we have other options that will still provide the same results? And I've got to put it that way because there are always options. There's the option to follow the way or not to follow the way. But also in Hebrews 10, starting in verse 19, it says, having therefore, brethren, boldness to enter into the holiest by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way, which he has consecrated for us through the veil, that is to say, his flesh, and having a high priest over the house of God. So in Hebrews it talks about a new and living way. We looked at this last week, but we also can put it here as well, as it shows, is like the way of man leads to death. It can lead to our own destructions, but Christ gives us the way, and it is the living way. There is only one way, then we must approach Christ directly to get to the Father. This eliminates this thought of your way, my way, your church, my church, any way, multiple ways. There is none of that. If Christ is being truthful in what he says, he is the way, meaning one way. I had a thought, and just like that, it's already gone. One way, one option. We can either follow Christ or we cannot. If we don't, then we're just sitting down and watching everyone else go by. We're not going the right way. We must be traveling along the pathway. We'll never get to our destination unless we get onto the way and go the right way. We could also use verses such as, when it was taught about, there are two ways. There's broad is the way, and wide is the path that goes to destruction, or narrow is the way, and straight is the path that goes to righteousness. We have to be about the right way to get to the right destination. The other idea is that Christ says he is the truth. Very simple. I am the truth. But what is truth in the first place? The definition of truth, and I love when they try and define it using the same root word as that it already has in itself. Definition of truth is the true or actual state of a matter. Well, to be true is to be truth, so where am I at here? To follow along and go down to what is true is it says that it must be real, exact, or accurate. So that we can all truthfully say we are all true. We are all each individuals. We all exist. We are all present here because we see each other in this place. Another option of the definition of truth is conformity with fact or reality. Not just conformity, but with fact or reality. No matter what we believe truth is, the truth is still the truth. It will defend itself. A couple of earthly examples of this, and these people got into a lot of heated debate, argument, and issues when they brought up the theory such as the earth is round. Now today we don't find that to be an odd thing, but there was a time that everyone thought the world was flat. And if you go too far, you will fall off. I'm glad I didn't go wandering and fall off, but Galileo took and proposed it to be round and got into a lot of heated issues about that issue. But yet the Bible already told us all of this. He told us about how the universe works and tells us all these different things, but yet we see the issues that mankind brought about by believing something that was not true. Eventually he was proven correct, but that doesn't make up for all of the lost time that we thought of something wrong. I remember hearing about this part in a nice little science experiment here conducted, and people thought that if you left meat out, then that's where maggots came from. They came from the meat, the flies and everything else. So the experiment was conducted. We took 2 jars that had a little thing. We put some meat inside of both of them, and we covered one of them and left the other open. Which one did the flies come from? The one that was left open, the maggots came because the flies came, dropped the larvae and left, and then they grew as it fermented and got unappetizing to eat for myself. I would have just ate the steak and said y'all can keep on debating later, but not let it get to that point. But a man called with the last name of Reddy did an experiment to test what was true. We can also look at the idea of where does the sun and the earth, how do they work? Which one revolves around which? For the longest time, people would say that the sun revolved around the earth. We have come to find out that was not accurate. That was not the truth. That was not the reality of the event. In reality, we revolve around the earth, which also shows that we could go one step further, that the earth does not revolve around me or any individual person. As some may think that it does, but we sometimes have to face the reality that with or without us, the earth will still rotate. So if we can realize these things about the earthly, and some of the thought there is look at how many different things over time have thought to be true, but we're not. What do we believe today? What is in our lives that we think is true? And the question is it? School teachers and administrators like to let us know if what we have done is not in conformity with reality or truth. I see our science teacher back there who just got back to work, already sharpening her red pen, I'm sure. It's like, yep, we have an answer key as to what is true. Our math teachers will let us know that 2 plus 2 is true, equals 4 is true. But if we say something else, it is not. So what do we look at when we get into the words of Christ? With the words of Christ, the words that Christ spoke were from the Father, and were true when he said them, and are still true today, because truth does not change. What is true yesterday is still true today. If we go back and look at Deuteronomy 18:18, we will see the example begin in the Old Testament, and we have an example going forward into the New. Deuteronomy 18:18 says, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I have commanded him. The words of God were true back in the time of Deuteronomy. And if we come forward to the time of the New Testament and to John, chapter 14, and verse 10, we see, believest thou not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words that I speak to you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwells in me, he does the works. We see the promise in Deuteronomy. We see the fulfillment in John. We see that the truth is of the Father. The Father has given us all things. He told us that the world was round. He told us, gave us the master plan of all of these great marvels of today. He gave us the wisdom from him. He gave us his truth. He gave throughout the years all of these things that we need. He gave it then. He gives it now. It continues to the future. Everything he has said leads us to what is to come. And that includes Jesus' next statement. I am the way, the truth, and the life. He is also the life. Not just a life. He's not just another person, but he is the life. What are we living for in this present day? What is our reason or purpose for being here? Why are we even here? Why were we existed in the first place? Christ came and tells us that we are to lose our life. We will gain it. If we take and sacrifice of ourselves. In Luke 17:33 is where he tells us this. He gives several examples to several different people throughout his ministry that we are not just here for ourselves. The world does not revolve around us. We are here to help the world. Now, the world does not need us to physically rotate around, but for all the things to be done, for us to be able to walk down the pathway, for us to be able to believe the truth, we need others to help us. We don't just come to this understanding miraculously. We don't just grow up and know everything we need. We need to be taught. I needed parents to help teach me what to do, what was right, what was wrong, help me to understand how to get dressed in the morning so that now I can get dressed on my own. Sometimes my wife helps pick out my outfits, but I still can get dressed because I've learned how to do it. I have learned what arms and sleeves are and how they correspond to each other. I've learned how to grow, how to look past myself. At a certain age, that is the only thing that exists in the world, is myself and the one who takes care of me. And if the two do not work together, then there is fussing that occurs. However, we grow and learn. Will we learn to the point that we are willing to let go of part of our own lives to live for Christ? By letting go of our life, by taking and sacrificing ourselves, is not to say we are killing ourselves or getting rid of anything of our own, but it is willingness to sacrifice ourselves for the greater good, for the greater cause, for the truth that is Christ. Paul says that his life is not his own, but Christ living in him. And we have several passages here, but primarily looking at Galatians right there. Paul sees the importance of this. We see in Galatians 2, verse 20, where Paul says, I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Just as God said back in Deuteronomy that he would give his words, in John 14, Christ says that I bring the words of God. Even Christ lived his life for God, bringing his words. Today, what are we doing? Do we take and live? Now, he was not physically crucified. If he was, and he would not be able to say that I am crucified with Christ. But he is living for Christ. He has put to death his old self of inner looking, of inner desires, and put his eyes towards things above. He has seen the truth. He sees the way and is walking that pathway in that life. We also see that this question that we must ask, is our life being lived in such a way to bring glory to God through Christ? Because that is the only way to bring glory to God, is through Christ, because Christ says, I am the way. We have to be through Christ to get to God. We look at several examples in Matthew. I almost started listing a bunch of different parable sections here. Show up Wednesday nights and you might be able to fill in some of those with the parable lessons that Gary's about to lead us in. But how many parables talk about our life being lived for God? You know, the rich young ruler goes off. He has servants behind. We have the idea of the people of the judgment scene here in Matthew 25. Even before that, we have several parables that all could be listed right here, showing this example of where is our life and what is our focus. Because the reality of what time we have available, no matter how many years we can acquire here on this earth, we're not guaranteed anything, but we see in James 4:14 that our life is but a vapor. Just like sitting there looking at water boiling or the teapot, that steam comes up and dissipates away. Now, if you get a really good boil, you get a good part, the steam gets a little bit higher. But wherever it goes, it still dissipates. In the grand scheme, in the grand total of years that we have, what are we doing with our life while we have the availability to do it? Do we focus our life to the truth along the way? Because that is what Christ said. He is the way, the truth, and the life. Do we know what way we are headed? Do we travel with the truth in our hearts? Do we have the life of Christ in us as we travel? In order for that to be true with what he said in John 14, chapter 6, we must have all of these things. The highlight of this lesson so far has been the first part of that verse. John 14:4 does not just say, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He finishes the statement by saying, no man comes to the Father but by me. If we are not walking in the way with truth and the life in Christ, then we won't be able to come to the Father. We cannot listen to every single possible option that is listed in the world. Your truth, my truth, many ways. I've even heard of it described as this verse here says Christ is the way. But there are many ways to get to Christ. I've had someone tell me that. But my question is, if there's only one truth, and there's only one way, we've got to get to Christ before we can get to the Father. There is one way, and He has given it to us. We must open our Bibles and look at it. I read an article this week talking about, would you be missed? Would you, if everyone in the congregation were just like you, what would the congregation be like? Now, it's not saying that we are to boast ourselves above the others, but maybe a good self-reflection idea. Do we fit the idea of being in the way with the truth in the life of Christ? Is that our characteristic? If everyone were like you, then tonight, will this place be full or empty? If you missed a week, would the contribution still be full or empty? Would it be a notice of anything? What is our life as we go about to the store, out and about? What do we have in our lives? If we are not following Christ in the way, Christ invites us to follow Him. Just looking up the words, follow me, I found these verses just in the book of Matthew. And of course, we have it shows up also in Mark, Luke, and John. How many places, how many ways does He say, follow me? Sometimes He says the words, follow me. Sometimes He says other words to do it. Are we following Christ? The only way to do that is to recognize this one verse. Jesus said He is the way, the truth, and the life. Do we believe that enough to take action for it? Do we go drive up to that one-way sign and decide to drive the other direction and run people over as they're trying to go the right way? Do we just park our vehicle and turn it off and decide not to get on the road? We have options. We don't have to go that way. I hope that everyone here has made the decision to be on the right way and traveling the right direction. If anyone needs assistance with this part of following Jesus, seeing that He is the way, the truth, and the life, let us work about that. We can find that through the Scriptures, through the study of them. Do we open the book and see the information? Do we learn new truth every day? There is so much to be learned out of this book. There is so much we can apply. Do we do it? Do we strengthen ourselves to the service of Christ? If we have an issue with any of these items, we invite you to come while we stand. We invite anyone that has the need of the invitation, whether it is to get into the way or to be renewed in the truth. We ask, let us help you. Let us all be an encouragement one to another. We're not walking this path alone. It is one pathway, which means we are all on that path. We can help each other as we go. If there is need of the invitation, we invite you to come while together we stand and sing.